The National Hurricane Center has tagged a new area of interest off the coast of the Carolinas, but before you skip ahead, hear me out. We're not talking about a repeat of Arthur impacts across parts of the Arklatex or Louisiana. However, is more rain on the way and more rain possible for some, and we could see heavy downpours in some of the areas that just saw historic flooding just a couple weeks ago. I'm meteorologist Jake Lambright. Want to get you up to speed with what the Hurricane Center's watching. There've actually been some updates that have trended in a positive direction. Then I want to tie this all back into how this disturbance that's off the East Coast could potentially impact us in the Arklatex in terms of rain chances closer to the 4th of July weekend. Let me go ahead and real quickly turn on the tropical weather outlooks here. You'll notice there's that that wave that the Hurricane Center is watching, and they're giving this about a 10% chance of becoming something organized over the next 48 hours or over the next 7 days. That's down from 20% that they had been going with since Saturday afternoon. So downgraded by Sunday evening to that 10%. So the odds right now that this becomes organized again is very, very low. However, I do want to take a look at the moisture content with this and what the impacts look like in the Arklatex. All right, so you'll have to ignore the terrible drawing, but right now our weather set up out off the east coast of the United States. We've got this stalled front that will remain pretty stationary. It'll slowly drift to the south, and as it does so, that's where we'll see a shift in moisture later this week. So by Tuesday, that front will be stalled just to the north of this pink blob that you see here over parts of Florida. And so we'll see increased rain chances over the northern half of Florida, where we'll have higher moisture values as well. This is a look at what we call precipitable water. And what this tells us is if we imagine that the atmosphere is a rag and we were to wring it out, every drop of rain out, how much rain we would pick up in one spot. So you'll see the available amount of moisture is about 2 to 2.1 inches across northern Florida, and then that will continue to gradually drift to the west as we head later into the week. Then by Wednesday, right here at home across parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, we'll have a higher moisture concentration. Now, we won't see widespread and flooding rains across the board, but we will see some isolated to scattered showers and thunderstorms during the afternoon. And with the amount of available moisture, most will walk away with pretty conservative totals, but we could see isolated amounts up to 1.5 inches or 2 inches of rain, especially if we see a downpour kind of sit in one area for a period of time. That additional moisture does continue into parts of Thursday as well, the highest concentration there along I-10. However, I do want to point something out. So the differences are really not that great between this magenta shaded area and then the kind of darker bluish shaded area. You'll notice out toward the Arklatex, we're looking at the available amount of moisture values between about 1.8 to 2 inches, where these are around at just over 2 inches. So again, not a huge shift and still giving us the moisture we need for some of those pop-up afternoon showers and storms. So whenever it comes to the flash flooding risk, through the rest of Sunday, the Weather Prediction Center has a good chunk of North Carolina outlined at a slight risk, level 2 out of 4 for flooding from Raleigh and Fayetteville all the way out to the coast. Now, as we look ahead to Monday, the local flood risk is not really one associated with that disorganized cluster of thunderstorms. But by Tuesday, you'll notice out towards New Orleans, Pensacola, Mobile, Panama City, Dothan, to name a few, there is a level 1 out of 4 risk for flooding, or a marginal risk. So very low, but not zero. Again, maybe one location or two sees a very heavy downpour and see some of those higher totals. That's where we could see some flash flooding. Then on Wednesday, you'll see not much out there expected in terms of a local flood risk, and also along the Gulf Coast on Thursday, not expecting a flood risk either. Now, when it comes to rainfall for the Arklatex, in total between now, June 28th, all the way through next Monday, July 6th at 7 a.m., I really like the European model. It's keeping us at about half an inch of rain. There will be some locally lower and locally higher amounts as well. In fact, some of these little orange hotspots that you see are areas with about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches of rain. And as I mentioned, the moisture's there where if we see a shower really tap into that or sit over the same place, we could see some isolated downpours that lead to totals like that. But overall, the majority of rainfall amounts across the board are not looking all that great. With that said, there is some data out there as well that indicates even lower totals possible, like the American model. A better look, though, would be the ensembles, and this is the American model ensembles lining up a little bit more with what I just showed you on the European model of about 0.5 inch to 1 inch of rain with some locally higher totals possible. The European ensembles, surprisingly, are actually a little bit lower, and I can't say that I agree with that solution all that much. Again, so I really want to drive home that while rain chances will increase starting on Wednesday and continue through the holiday weekend, they will stay very isolated to scattered in nature at best. So your holiday weekend will not be a washout. Of course, if anything big changes with the forecast, I'll make sure to keep you posted on the latest as I learn more.